Um, and thank you everyone for joining us today and welcome to our tribal producer info session. We have a lot of content for you today and some information around some tribal producers that work with our Tribal Elder Food Box program in Wisconsin, and the Great Lakes Intertribal Food Coalition. Welcome everyone, and we'll get started with introductions and overview of the agenda.
Thanks, Steph. Hi, everyone. For today's session, we're going to focus on what you need to know to take a food product from a kitchen into a grocery retailer. We only have 60 minutes, so it will be an overview, but hopefully it will provide you with the information that you need to develop a product and get it into the market. Our real hopes are that more tribal food producers have products that can go into programs like the Tribal Elder Food Box.
Thanks, Jamie. Sagoli Swagweg, Yagogwali Ningets. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Dodge. I'm a member of the Oneida Nation and Menominee Nation. I go by Yagogwali in Oneida and Awashuki in Menominee, which means bear woman. I'm a member of the Bear Clan. I work for the Great Lakes Intertribal Food Coalition and the Menominee Tribe Department of Ag and Food Systems as the Intertribal Food Systems Coordinator. So I work closely with tribal producers in the Great Lakes region for procurement on our Tribal Elder Food Box program. And then I work with all 11 tribes in Wisconsin with distribution of those foods and needs, addressing food insecurity in our tribal nation. So it's grateful to be here today, and I'll provide a little bit information on producers and their background. So thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, Steph. Hi, I'm Jamie Rarig. I work for the Michigan State University Center for Regional Food Systems and Product Center and coordinate assistance that food and farm businesses need across the Midwest. And I'll pass it to Jasmine.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Boland Williamson. I'm the Food and Farm Business Coordinator here at Michigan State University Center for Regional Food Systems, and I work with Jamie under the TA branch.
So we started these sessions with the Great Lakes Intertribal Food Coalition and the Great Lakes Midwest Regional Food Business Center. I know lots of words there. And between our collaboratives, we felt the need to connect with more tribal producers and bring resources and explain what is out there and available to help food and farm businesses build up their businesses. So I want to share a little bit about the Great Lakes Midwest Regional Food Business Center and also share some more recent news. So the centers were established to drive economic opportunities across the region, creating a more resilient food system. There were 12 centers located across the country. In our area, we had representatives in Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan to build up that more resilient food system, get resources out there. But sadly, in July, the USDA made the decision to terminate the program. So this will be one of the last opportunities that we can offer together as a team as part of the regional food business centers. We do remain committed to providing assistance to farmers, producers, and food businesses that they need to thrive and survive. MSU Center for Regional Food Systems and the partners have been doing this work for a long time and will continue to support resilient food systems in our region. I'm going to pass it back to Steph so she can share more happy news, some producer spotlights, and really show you how you can have a packaged food business in the Midwest.
Thank you. Yeah, so what's beautiful about the Tribal Elder Food Box program is we work with small local producers in the area, and they really range on a spectrum with the business and economic scale. So some of our producers are just starting up, and some of them are more advanced and have been in the egg business and farm business for a few years. So packaging and labeling, wash and pack, all of those really important processes in your ability to get food from farm to table um, are really important, and we like to offer a lot of assistance and training on that. So Jamie, if you could go to the next slide, please. One of our producers, and this is an individual who has been um, in the business for a while and has developed his infrastructure to be a wild rice producer over the years. And so Spirit Lake Native Farms is run by Bruce Savage, who is a Mills Lac tribal member, I believe, out of Minnesota. I said that wrong. Lac de Flambeau Nation out of Minnesota. And so he does wild rice processing, and that's done the traditional way through wood fire parching. And he also produces maple syrup off of his land too. So you have images on the screen from both of his products. One is the packaged wild rice. Bruce originally started out buying blank packaging and then labeling each package himself, printing off his own Spirit Lake Farms label. And then as he grew in the business, he eventually moved to buying packaging that was already labeled, as you're seeing in the picture. So he didn't have to hand label that, or his staff didn't have to hand label that himself. So that's a nice perk. Those tend to be a little bit more expensive than buying blank packaging and labeling it yourself. So again, that's all based on capacity with your farm and your budget, things like that. And then what you're seeing on the left is Bruce uses glass jars for his syrup, so they're not in plastic. And then those are individually labeled that him and his family, it's a family-owned farm, do. So that's an example of some products for Spirit Lake Native Farms and how he has transitioned. I'm sorry I didn't have a picture of his old packaging to the new packaging. I'm sure that probably would have been helpful. But I do have some other examples too from another producer who is in Michigan, Mishko Ode Farm. And this is run by Kevin Donner. And they have a full farm, so they provide jams and different produce. So carrots, potatoes, you're seeing lettuce here. They also do fish for the Tribal Elder Food Box program. Yep. And then I really like the Morel mushroom packaging. Um, as they added a cute little quote on there that says, "If you know, you know, best spring mushroom ever." And I just thought that was so cool. So some of the benefits of being able to print out your own label is you can add additional content in there that's specific to the product or to your company. Um, so in the previous slide, you seen they had some packaging for, I believe it was lettuce and jams, and then labels that they put on their vacuum sealed lake trout and their mushrooms. So I believe Mishko Ode does most of their packaging by labeling it themselves, printing off their own labels and labeling it themselves. Again, this is a more advanced farm. It's not been it's been couple years in development. So their packaging and labeling is more defined and has, I guess, developed a little more. One thing that we make sure with for our Tribal Elder Food Box is you always have to make sure you have like your company name and the contents and like the ingredients of that either produce or product if it's minimally processed. So those are some of the main things that we highlight to our producers when we're talking about packaging and labeling.
Thanks, Steph. Is that list somewhere available on what's required to have on your label? for the
Yes,
Emergency
it
Box? Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Jamie. So for us on our Great Lakes Intertribal Food webpage, and I can drop the website in the chat once I'm done. Um, We have a producer handbook that indicates packaging and labeling and what all needs to be on those. And then it's also in the MOU agreement that we have producers sign with Feeding America. So we really make this present to our producers and we strongly enforce this.
Okay, great. Yeah, that'd be great to drop the link in the chat and then we can
Okay.
get it up and available too on the website. We, Jasmine and I are going to go through what the FDA and maybe local health agencies and things require, which is probably more than what GlyphC recommends and requires. So before we get going, I'm gonna do a quick poll. Some of the folks that are on this recorded session are educators like me, so maybe you don't necessarily have the answers to these questions, but if you could help us, does your food or beverage product right now, is your branding ready to go? Let us know. Do you love it? No, I'm just thinking about it now, or no, I am just here to learn. All right, got a lot of people in the room who are just here to learn. So thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, great. And if there's anything any knowledge that you have that Jasmine and I aren't sharing and should be, you can feel free to put it in the chat or we'll have time for you to unmute and tell us too. All right, Jasmine, I'm going to pass it on to you.
So thank you so much, Stephanie, for going over those two producers. It was really cool to see all the different kind of packaging and see their personalities. So thank you for providing those for us. So as Jamie said, we're going to be going over what the USDA requires for labeling. So considerations will be for the retail requirements, the FDA, and you will also have to look to your state Department of Agriculture for any other very specific needs for your area. Okay, right, next slide, Jamie. So I really liked the morel mushroom one too. I thought it was really, really cute. So I decided to take that for this slide. Okay, next one. All right, so one of the major things that you're going to have to take into consideration is your product testing. One of the ones that we require and recommend is something called the Process Authority Review, or the PAR testing. And that measures the water activity. So things that will cause bacteria growth, yeast, mold, and everything in between. Your food will be either in the category of a low acid food, an acid food, an acidified food, which is acid that has been added to a product. And if you're unsure of what your product is, you will need to get like a pH tester, which is an example to the right. You'll have to get samples prepared, so all of the various sizes and things like that. And you will have to usually have an official PAR letter in order to get your product approved by the USDA and your state authority. Ours here, our regulatory body here in Michigan is the Michigan Department of Agriculture, or excuse me, Agricultural and Rural Development. I always forget the R in MDARD. I just want to note that a PAR test can take anywhere from several weeks to a few months. On average, is anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. So in order to get on the retailer shelf, you want to move as quickly as possible for those requirements. All right, you can go to the next slide, Jamie. As I just mentioned, you'll go into 3 categories. I'll go through this really quickly. I know there's a lot on here. So low acid food is any food that has a pH of 4.6 or higher. And these are the ones that are the most at risk for foodborne illnesses. So they'll have to be in an airtight container. Oftentimes there'll be thermal canning involved. And this is all to reduce the risk of foodborne illnesses. And examples will be including applesauce, green beans, shelf-stable broths, to name a few. An acidified food is a food with a pH of anything greater than 4.6 and acid is added. It will also still need to meet those same requirements of the airtight seals and things like that. And those include pickles, salsas, tropical fruits, and puddings. And then finally, an acid food, which is a pH of lower than 4.6. These ones are, I hate to use the word safest, but it makes it a little bit easier because microbes can't grow in acid, so it's safe from things like botulism and may not need a part testing. And those are barbecue sauces, jams, juices, and some fermented foods. And these can be processed to be shelf stable. Next slide, Jamie. Other things you want to consider, your shelf life, which is a period the product is fit for intended use that can be described as a best by date or a use by date. The longer the shelf life, the less likely you have to restock it. So you don't have to do this as often. This will add costs. So shelf life testing can be in the hundreds of dollars per product. So you want to include that in all of your costings. And just noted that refrigerated and frozen foods have shelf life variations, so no two products are going to be the same. You'll also have to include a nutrition facts label, and it has to be the 2016 version, which is the one that is on this slide. And your recipe must be finalized. Once you create your recipe and create a nutrition label, that's it. You have to keep it that way, or you'll have to go back from the very beginning. Things to note that these all must be provided in weight, and you will need a food scale for this step. Go ahead, Jamie. So we've seen some of the different labels provided by Stephanie. So these ones are just kind of generalized what it will look like. You'll need to have a common name or a statement of identity, your product name. You'll have to have a manufactured or produced by, address and name of the maker. You'll need to have that nutrition facts panel, and in the lower third of the panel, you'll have to include the quantity that is included in your packaging. Next slide, Jamie. To continue, the ingredient list has to be in descending order, and your secret sauce can just have spices. That is considered a trademark, your specific recipe, so you don't have to include everything in there, but you will have to include some sort of identifier. As I mentioned, you'll either have to have the sell by or the use by date, and you'll have to have a meaningful code or a lot code. That is that numerical number we see on every package, and that is to ensure if there is any sort of cross-contamination or some sort of issue with an ingredient or the product itself, that you can issue a recall if necessary. So that just makes it easier for you. Next slide. So as I just said, contaminations, you'll have to take into consideration any allergen labeling. The 8 most common that we tend to see are the wheat, peanuts, tree nuts, egg, soy, fish, and shellfish. Others can include gluten, dairy, etc. But you want to make sure that if they are included in there, that they're properly labeled that they are, or if it is a highlight of your product that they don't have those in there, you want to make sure you have the does not include in there. You might also want to think of precautionary labeling. So if you are either in a kitchen or you yourself make other products that do have allergens in them, you want to put on there that it is manufactured in a facility that has that contaminant, just to protect yourself as well as the consumer. And then note that the USDA does have different requirements for products that include meat in there. So they'll have their own specific labeling. All right, Jamie, next slide. So the packaging itself. I also really like the Spirit Lake Farms because I like the maple leaf. I think the maple leaf is a really nice touch. So you want your package to stand out. You want it to have its own personality. You want to have it be very different from everyone else, but it also needs to be functional. As Stephanie said, when Spirit Lake had the original, they had a label put on, but now they have a completely printed packaging, so that just makes it easier. You also want to think of trends in the packaging world. So a lot of things we're seeing right now is compostable packaging. And while I think it's a really great trend, that might not be a sustainable trend in the future, and we might see people go back to more traditional packaging, especially as we're seeing all the different tariffs and things that are coming through right now. Your package also needs to meet regulations, meet industry guidelines, and help extend your shelf life. And some food industry specific standards are for certain products. So you want to make sure that you are using the appropriate packaging before you order a bunch of it. So you definitely want to make sure you talk with your regulatory body that for those different things. And also, retailers may only allow certain sizes. So you want to do your market research to make sure you have a package and a product that fits their shelf needs. And it has to make sense for your budget. So you might like something like a glass container, but you'll usually have to, at the beginning, have to order small amounts of the package. So something like glass will be a lot more expensive than plastic. So you need to make sure that you're not accidentally putting yourself in the hole by going with one package versus the other. But once you do scale, the economy of scale will reduce your per unit cost of packaging. So just some things to consider for those. And then again, this one is just some other general questions to ask yourself. Again, is it comparable size to competitors? Will it need to withstand any heat treatment for your testing practices? Will the package you choose add costs for higher weight packaging with shipping and distribution? This is an important one, especially if you go to a co-packer or co-manufacturer, that depending on how much that weighs and how much you have to purchase at a specific time, your shipping might be really high for those products. Again, if your business is concerned about the impact in the environment, is your products being recycled? Can they be recycled? Are they compostable? And this one I didn't really think about because I think of salad dressings with these, and I kind of like seeing the separation. But if your product does settle while it's on the shelf, do you want to have something like an opaque bottle just to not necessarily show that separation? Next slide, Jamie. So we didn't go over what an SOP is, but an SOP is just a detailed written instructions for your daily operations. This includes things like packaging as well. So what you want to do for this is you want to make sure your SOP includes the name of the person who wrote it, the approval, so who signed off on it, the date it was written, and the name of the person's responsible for carrying this out. So that could be something like your shift manager, your production manager, your kitchen manager, whoever it is that is going to have to follow these. The frequency, so how often? Is it every time you make it? Is it once a week? Your detailed procedures, the record, so how it will be documented that this SOP has been followed, and then correction. So if that SOP fails, detail how you will correct the issue, such as doing a recall on the product if there is a contamination issue. Next slide. All right, so that concludes all of mine. I know I went through that really fast, but we are a little crunched for time. So moving it on with Jamie.
Does anybody have any specific questions for Jasmine before we move into kind of a new topic? She reviewed the science part of product testing, talked about shelf life studies.
And I do just want to mention, thank you, Kara. I see that you messaged me. So there are 9 allergies. I kind of figured that there were some that were missing from that, including dairy and sesame. I forgot sesame was just recently added as part of an allergen. So thank you for that note.
A lot of times businesses, especially during the COVID pandemic, people had time on their hands and they thought, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to do a food business. And people, I think, often underestimate the amount of steps that are involved and how much time it can take. Sometimes people are still trying to work full-time jobs and managing those businesses. So there's it can take 2-3 years, to launch a product to get to this point. So anyway, thank you, Jasmine. This next section will be an overview of marketing for a packaged food business. Again, it is just going to be an overview, and I would highly encourage businesses to dive much deeper into each concept and build out their own marketing strategy. We'll have more resources available on our website to help with website development, social media, and other tools to support your business in the upcoming months too. So please keep looking back to the website. Let's start by talking about what is a value proposition. So a good value proposition is something that's easy for the customer to understand. It communicates really specific results that the customer will get from that product and explains how that product is different from some other product. For example, with the rideshare company Uber, their value proposition is Uber convenience, right? It tells us that riding with them is convenient. It's how they solve that problem for us. A value proposition tells someone how a brand is different and why they should buy from you and not your competitor. And lots of people will tell you that you have no competitors, that you have such a unique product, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of packaged food products available in the market that they can choose from. So everybody does have some kind of a competition out there. And for tribal food products, I would suggest that traditional or indigenous or culturally relevant differentiates your product in the market, right? Or if it's produced by an indigenous producer, all those things can be part of a value proposition, and you can defend your product in the market using that value proposition. So here's what we'll talk about over the next few minutes. To market your product, you're going to need a few resources, and this might require you to get good at using Canva or some other online graphic design program, or hire this out. As a business owner, people, they just can't do it all. There's so much to manage, including the marketing side of things. So in the next few slides, we're going to talk about marketing strategy and some of the printed materials and resources that a person would need if they're going to go into a grocery store or buyer meeting, or a meeting with any kind of a buyer, including a sell sheet, a pricing sheet, a pitch deck, the pitch itself, what you say, the words that you use to sell your business to a buyer, a little bit about knowing your numbers. There's a lot more to that, so I would definitely recommend working with a business coach on your costing and getting more support there. And then we'll finish up by talking about sampling products. So the first thing you'll need to define is your marketing objectives. Do you need to grow your customer base, get into new stores? Writing all of these questions down and trying to strategize or typing them will help you to develop your market strategies. When thinking about your customer, who are they? What do they need? What does your product offer them? So is it a healthy snack for new moms? Is it a traditional food that can fulfill somebody who's trying to follow a culturally relevant diet? Think about who that customer is. And then brand positioning is what sets your product apart from others. This is where you can bring in your business mission and values. An example is the company Apple. They appeal to tech-savvy people looking for cutting-edge technology. That is their brand position. So what is your brand position? Packaging can be another way to attract customers and buyers. I highly recommend people walk through a grocery store and search online for other products that could be considered a competitor, or have a packaging that looks like you want it to look. The last thing is your strategy and how to promote your product. So I'm going to move on to the next topic, is a sell sheet. So a sell sheet is a printed, some people call it a sales sheet. It's a printed, usually two-sided document that shows pictures of your product, sizes of the package, how many units per case, and a bunch of those kind of details. There are lots of free templates online. You can use tools like Canva to create your own, or you might want to go to a graphic designer. It's printed in full color and highlights your product. And I highly recommend you do not add your pricing to this document. It might cost more to print something like this, and you want your pricing sheet to be a separate document. Stephanie, do you have something to add here? Okay. All right, so then let's talk about the pricing sheet. So again, a separate document from the sell sheet. because prices may change and you've already spent a lot of time and money printing those sell sheets, it's best to have the pricing sheet separate. It can just be a black and white copy, and it can include your barcodes so that the buyer can easily scan it and read all about your product. Now, the pitch deck is basically a slide deck. You can use PowerPoint or Google Sheet or Google Slides to develop this. It's usually 8 to 12 slides that really tells the story of your business, and you should organize it in that way. So, hi, who am I? I'm the owner of this business. Tell your business background, any key attributes of the product you want to share in the pitch, like high in protein or organic, something like that. Also, including your financials, where your business is going, and your goals for your business. And again, you can use lots of different online templates that are at no cost to you for that. And look, I would definitely recommend looking up some examples online. And then the pitch is what you're going to tell somebody about your business. It can be anywhere from like 60 to 90 seconds. It's really important to include those attributes that I talked about, like high in protein. Also, your financial numbers, how many quantities are in a case that you're distributing, and really have that in your head when you're talking to a buyer. You'll want to know what your cost is for wholesale, what your retail suggested cost is. These are the kind of questions that they might ask you if you don't put it in your pitch. So to make sure that you have that ready. And many packaged food businesses participate in pitch events and earn good money through that. But I would not rely solely on pitch events or grants to fund a new business. But some people have really good success. If you're good on a stage, you might be good at giving your pitch out loud to a group of people. All right, before talking to a buyer, do your research about them. Visit their stores, learn who your competitors are in the store. They might ask those kinds of questions. Talk to other packaged food brands and learn when the buyers like to meet with suppliers. For example, if you're going to offer a special holiday themed product, you might need to meet with them much earlier in the year than you could ever imagine, so that they can get it into the stores before the holiday season. And when you do get that meeting, be sure to bring your products with you so they can feel it, touch it, see it. They might measure the products, that sort of a thing. They want to know how it's going to fit into their store. They also might want you to serve them samples, so be prepared for that, or ask in advance so you can be prepared with utensils and napkins. And then, yeah, have your pitch all ready. Practice, practice, practice is the number one thing you can do for any of these kind of meetings or sharing your pitch with somebody. And then last, think about how you will be able to spend your time sampling products in stores. There's usually a requirement that you do that. So you might be working weekends, giving samples, and make sure you're prepared to do that. There's also companies that you can hire to demo your product for you, and some of the stores could give you a list of potential companies to demo. And that will obviously add to your costs, so consider that as part of your marketing budget. There's lots of places that you can consider selling to. A lot of times people will come and say, I want to be in all of the, big box stores. But there's a lot of other, there's small family-owned stores, there's cooperatives, there are health food stores, farmers markets, and even hospital cafeterias are sourcing locally produced products. The Tribal Elder Food Box is a great example of how locally produced products can be purchased for communities. And then to wrap it up, I'll put some links in the chat for you to access other trainings that we've done as a team here. Highly recommend that you get in touch with the Great Lakes Intertribal Food Coalition if you're not yet. And Steph can mention the upcoming events that they have. And follow us all on the social media platforms so that you can stay in touch and hear about other programs and opportunities that are coming up.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Yeah, so I just had a couple events on here. that are upcoming in the Wisconsin area. So the Intertribal Ag Council is having their regional meeting September 30th and the 1st in Wisconsin Dells. And the Intertribal Harvest Festival is piggybacking off of that event, and that would be the 2nd and 3rd in the Dells Baraboo area with the Ho Chunk Nation. So I can drop the registration isn't open for that, but once it's available, I can send it to Jamie to be sent through the listserv. And I can drop the IAC website in the chat too. They have the regional meeting in the Dells, but they also have their national conference in Vegas in December. So I'll drop their website in the chat as well if you're interested in any of those events. And Jamie, was there anything else for closing? Oh, and then yeah, if you want to follow Glyphsy on our Facebook, or keep an eye on our website, or I'll put my email in the chat as well. Keep in touch with us for any upcoming producer trainings or workshops. Glyphsy usually offers a lot of resources for tribal producers, for all producers in the area, actually, and a number of different events too. So if you can follow us on Facebook, or I'll put my email in the chat too. I'll put the Glyphsy email in the chat for you all. So you'll have that too.
And thank you so much, Steph. And we will post this recording on our website if you have other people that you want to share it with, or have more that you want to learn. And we really appreciate you sticking with us today and joining us, and hope all the best in your business or your clients' businesses. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Here, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks, Jasmine.